And we're live. So, welcome everyone to this edition of the Jitsi Community Call. The first one since the recent big news around Jitsi. I expect we're going to spend some time around this. Uh, let's start briefly with a tech update, though. So, we we've been talking a little bit last time about the fact that we're working on reinforcing Jibri reliability. Uh, Brian, would you like to summarize a little bit the status there?
Yeah, sure. We've done some stuff around basically making sure that when Jibri encounters an error, it reports that up, so it's taken out of the pools because we were running into issues where an error happened, and we would try and keep selecting that same Jibri over and over. So there's a lot of the stuff is around basically that stickiness of errors. Basically.
Great. And for everyone, recording is now officially enabled on me, Jitsi. We're just not announcing it yet because we want to make sure that we have all the reliability work to make sure we have a perfect experience. But so far, it's behaving pretty well on me, Jitsi. Feel free to use it. You just need a Jobbox account where we store the recordings right now. um, right. Any updates from mobile, Pavel, Saul, Ollie?
Well, since last call, we did release the new versions already on both the App Store and the Android Play Store. They do include a number of fixes like the and features, the ability to create meetings from the directly from the welcome page. Add meetings to an existing calendar entry that didn't have one. Signing button for Google, I believe, is also a new thing, so you can very easily in your instance. And recording with Dropbox is also part of mobile. Um, Unfortunately, we had to disable it last minute on iOS because Apple was being Apple. But we're gonna work on some way to enable it again. I think that's all I remember right now.
Yeah, and to be specific, Apple's problem with this is that they insist on having a way of recording that doesn't require a third-party account. And the options that we are exploring right now are potentially storing the recording on the user's iCloud storage space, or maybe having some way of a limited time shortly after the 30 minutes, for example, where we keep the Jibri alive and let the user download the recording directly from the Jibri. Uh, so these are the things that we're looking at right now, and uh, we're going to assess and see which ones are, what's more practical and work on that. Pavel Zoli, would you like to add anything?
No, I not. I think Saul's basically told everything we've been working on the last 2 weeks.
All right, and Pavel, any update around the ICE session reinitiation?
Yeah, so it's kind of stuck on the PR, the first one for the JVB, which fixes regular conference migration and problem that the data channel was not reopened. And then I have another PR with the actual ICE restart logic when the ICE fails. It's not really like real ICE restart on the JVB side because Cheekov allocates new channels. But yeah, I have this logic. It's still not in the PR because it depends on this one for the JVB. I don't know when it gets merged because right now I'm on vacation, but yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Pavel. So we also went through, some of you might have noticed, Meet Jitsi page redesign. Things should be looking a little bit tidier right now, fancier too. Expect a little bit more work there. So we've been working with Chad specifically around the fact that we need a little bit more of a a little bit better of a first-time user experience, something that takes us through a few explanatory steps that say, hey, here's what this site is about, here's how to use it, very briefly, so that our users and all users can be slightly less confused when they get there. We're also planning a little bit more work around letting people hook in there. I think I mentioned that already last time, but it's worth reminding, letting people hook in their own analytics engines, so that people who are looking at this from a product perspective and trying to understand user behavior and which features are getting more used or less, and optimize for that, you would have a way to do that soon. Also, Damien started looking at Google's new way of calendar integration. Damien, do you have something to share there?
It's almost done, and I'm ready to publish it. I'm just figuring out some translation stuff around and make it more obvious. But yeah, it's almost ready to publish it. But after that, we will have some more work to do with our
Right.
calendar integration.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to figure out. So expect some new stuff there, and there's some more work around figuring out how to let users discover that and add it to their calendars. And we still need extensions because there's no equivalent for that in Outlook, in Office 365. So we need to find good ways to present these to users so that they can add them to their own calendars. George, anything new on your side, or maybe talk a little bit about the immediate next steps? I know that you had 2 bugs that are pretty important that you were working on.
Yeah, that, and also I have been working on the redesigned SSRC rewriting that's going to solve some video corruption issues. Progress there has been a little bit slow, but we shouldn't be too far from getting this fixed. And the 2 issues that I have PRs for are for the bitrate allocation, not upscaling the on-stage participant in certain occasions, and that should fix, improve the user experience and the video quality of calls. We don't really know how often this was happening, but the hunch is that it has been affecting a lot of calls. So yeah, that's going to be an important improvement. Fixing a regression, actually, not an improvement.
Great. I think those are the main steps. Would anyone from the team want to add something? Sorry, not the main steps, the main points in the past couple of weeks. If I'm forgetting anything important before we move to the next item of the agenda, would anyone in the team like to add something I have forgotten? All right. So a brief note there. A significant number of us are currently working through the very mundane logistics of moving to a new place. As you know, a big chunk of the team is currently in Austin, and a big part of that is of us will be moving to London. So you've been hearing people say that progress has been slow in the past week or so. It probably will remain so for the next 2 or 3 weeks, as we slowly, or the next month, as we slowly find our way to London. And the big news is that we still have people staying in Austin. We're going to have London now as well. So more places for people in the community to reach out and catch up with us. So if you're traveling to any of these places, reach out and give us a note. And obviously, all of this is part of the aftermath of the big announcement last week. which is that the entire team, the entire Jitsi team, are continuing our work as part of 8x8. I know that a number of people have reached out to me privately with concerns that what is the future of Jitsi now that Atlassian doesn't actually need the technology? Would they and why would they continue supporting it? So we're now happy to be able to put all those at rest. The integration and coexistence with 8x8 will be a very healthy one. There's a great place for that technology there. There's a lot of enthusiasm for Jitsi's open sourceness. And we feel that this is a really good place for Jitsi to continue its growth, not only its existence, but we feel that it will be actually very, very beneficial to the project. With this, we are terminating the update part of the call, and I'm opening the mic for any questions, comments, or just thoughts. Open mic.
I've got a quick question. So yeah, as I mentioned in the last couple of calls, we've been working on kind of extending Jitsi to support a few kind of custom use cases. And so last call, the recommendation was because we were experiencing some problem, I guess, jitter-related issues when multiple people in the same room were present. And so we're moving to the RTP translator, and I just want to sort of just get a recommendation as far as either so now we still want to support the transcription use case, and so we need the raw audio, but we also want to capture the audio. We have no use case for the video, but just capture the audio directly, sort of as RTP Opus data. So the way we're doing it right now is sort of just piggybacking off the RTP translator. I'm just wondering whether it would make sense for us to still use the audio mixer, whether it's even possible to get the raw audio. And separately, is there, aside from kind of using a filter to sort of snoop on the packets, is there an approach that you would recommend in lieu of that to get access to that data?
Is Boris on the call?
Yes, I am.
Boris, would you like to take that, or?
I'm not sure I have a good answer here. If you're using the translator mode and you want to record, there's the recorder RTP implementation that handles a lot of it. If you don't want to use that, it would be pretty hard because you need to somehow connect to and make sure that FMJ does the decoding for you.
So we are using that. That was kind of like what we discussed last time. But there's not an easy way when you use that to still get the audio. So like that solves a use case for getting that RTP data sort of in its raw form. But is there a better approach so currently in Jitsi, we're using the audio mixer to just per participant grab the raw audio, so the already decoded audio. To continue to support that use case, is there a recommendation, like either?
Why wouldn't you just split and handle it by two independent Jitsis?
Yeah, I thought about it. Isn't that a little too much overhead?
It's not even. So it's not even. It doesn't even have to be two independent Jitsi instances. Just two independent calls, and they can both be on the same Jitsi instance for all you care. But they're two. Like it sounds like you just need two things that run in different modes. So rather than, it will be the same resources because you need to do two different jobs. Right. So rather than try and get this all fit into the same audio flow, we're not really gaining anything with that. So you might as well just have two participants and have them configured differently.
And so have one use the audio mixer and then have the other just use the translator? Is that what you're saying?
So remind me a little bit of your use case, but part of what you want to do is you want to keep a recording after the call, which is a recording of the whole call, right? Not just individual participants. You want to have the entire audio recorded, right?
Yes, but per participant, which the recorder RTP impl.
Oh, okay. So you want to end up with multiple recordings of that call.
Yeah, we actually kind of want both, but yes, that's but that does.
What do you mean? What do you mean you kind of want both?
Well,
do you want multiple files or a single file at the end of the call?
We're actually changing it. We're just going to get a stream. So we're kind of just streaming it so that we can kind of do some analysis on it. So
a stream of what? Of the entire call or of a single participant?
It's like per participant stream. So it's effectively like a file. But yeah, so for the most part, the recorder RTP impl gives us all of that sort of directly out of the box. I just didn't see an easy way, so in the default implementation, the audio, it's using the audio mixer for transcription, and then, the receive stream buffer is getting, per participant, getting the kind of raw audio data. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't an obvious way to be able to do, to get both the audio data and everything that the recorder RTP impl provides, without more kind of mashing. So that's really the core of my question is like, is there, I mean, the recorder RTP impl is doing audio level checking. So isn't it decoding the audio instead? Not at all.
No, actually, the audio level checking is based on RTP header extensions that carry the audio level.
Right.
So there's no decoding there. Now my memories of libjitsi itself are kind of dusty. I didn't think that you needed to have the mixer in every individual stream in order to
it's
get
just
it decoded.
Yes, per conference, and then it already will separate the streams. But then the question is, can I have the mixer and the stream at the same time? Is that a problem? Sorry, the mixer and the translator at the same time.
Well,
in the call, or do it more like what you're recommending and splitting it up.
I don't think you can have a mixer and a translator in one call. It's just the code isn't designed this way. But if you want to transcribe without using a mixer, that shouldn't be too hard to do. You just need to plug in the input to the transcriber to the raw audio from the recorder RTP impl. That should work. It's just needs some glue there.
So sorry, say that again. So I how would I get the raw audio from the recorder RTP impl?
I don't remember exactly how it's structured, but it does save everything to MP3, I believe, and there's an audio silence effect that has access to the raw audio. If you plug in your code there and sort of pass it as a buffer to the transcriber, that should work instead of taking the buffers from the mixer.
I see. So yeah, so the audio silence device, because that's basically how the mixer currently works in the default Jitsi implementation. There's like the audio silence media device or whatever it's called.
Yeah, when we're doing transcription, the only use for the mixer is getting these raw streams and having them code a callback.
Right. Right. And so, which works for, that was working for us, but the use case to still have the RTP streams as well as the audio, it wasn't really clear what was the simplest approach. Okay, yeah, so if we can just piggyback into the audio silence device, well, it should give us the best of both worlds, which is still be able to get those individual files, streams, RTP streams, but also get the decoded audio. Is what you're saying?
Yeah, but it's hard to say which one is going to be simpler or easier, this one or just what Emil suggested of just using a second participant.
Right. Okay. And yeah, so if we do that other approach, we would just, there should be no problem just inviting, we'll just make a setting so that we can either on the fly per call activate either translator mode or not translator mode and just have them both be there. That's what you're saying, right? And then
I think having a translator and a mixer for a single call would be a major surgery there.
No, but in different Jitsi instances.
Calls.
Yeah. That should be easy.
Oh, I see. Oh, so they have to be separate instances. There's no way to do it.
No. Separate calls. Different Jitsi participants is what I meant. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So like I don't think there's currently a way to dynamic. I think it's sort of a one-time setting.
It's a one-time setting for all Jitsi, I think. Yeah.
Right, but that should be very easy to fix. Just to make it by call when it gets invited one way with the parameter to use RTP translator and the other parameter to use mixer, and then that's probably the simplest thing, right? Because then there's very little change. That okay.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Simplify my code because okay. Great. That's really helpful.
Hey, everybody. This is Lewis. I had a question regarding video quality. I'm using libjitsi meet directly and was wondering how I can get the best possible video quality from the JVB if I'm not using the active speaker API, so that way the active speaker always has the high res and the non-active speakers are low res. So like a Brady Bunch tile mode like you have here in Jitsi.
So you want to have, for example, 720p for all participants, because that's not, I mean, you could do it by disabling simulcast, for example, but I'm not sure if that's going to lead to a good user experience, because you're going to, well, in a more than 5 people call, it's going to explode the receiver. I mean, it's going to make it receive a lot of data, and it's going to process a lot of data, and I'm not sure.
Is there any way to do it through the JVB?
To disable simulcast, for example?
No, to have the JVB send high res.
For how many people simultaneously?
Say 6.
And you're fine with the fact that this means like 15 megabits per call?
Yeah, as long as it's not like like what the other gentleman was saying, where it simulates peer-to-peer, where all the processing is on the client side.
No, he wasn't saying that. This is not about peer-to-peer. Just receiving 6 720p streams anywhere. They're all 720p, so this means about 2.5 megabits of data per stream.
Okay.
So you end up having to handle 15 megabits without peer-to-peer. You get them from the bridge, all of them, but because they're all 720p, they all have a lot of data.
Right. So the only way to do that is to disable the simulcast?
That's one way. Specifically for Brady Bunch, Lenny, do you recall how we ask exactly the bridge to tell every participant comes in a specific resolution?
I don't remember exactly.
We select all endpoints, and then we limit it by setting the max resolution, incoming resolution thing. That's what we do for Brady Bunch mode.
That should be the answer.
So can you say that again, please?
So if you send a selected endpoint message for a remote endpoint, that means the bridge will kind of send you that participant in high quality. So what we do for Brady Bunch is we send selected endpoints for everyone, but then there's another message you can send, which is the max incoming resolution you want to receive. And we can limit that so that in Brady Bunch mode, we select everyone so we get them higher than 180, but we can cap it to say 360 or something if we have a lot of people up.
The selected what's the API for specifying the max? I know in libjitsi meet.
I don't remember that offhand, but it's like max frame width. Something it's represented as a max frame width, I think.
Yeah, it's almost that's the height, and I think we have a data channel message for that, right, Brian?
Yeah, it is. It is the end. I mean, it's the endpoint transport data channel or WebSocket or whatever that might be. But yeah, maybe it's height.
But I think the question is how you do that through libjitsi meet. Does he have to send the message directly through the data channel, or do we have an API for that in libjitsi meet?
I'm sure we probably have an API for it. I just don't remember what it is.
Well, maybe try to search our code for Max.
Found it in RTC.js. It's called set receiver video constraint.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so that'll set the max resolution, and then for the getting everybody's resolution, I just call the selected endpoint message API.
For everyone, yes.
Everyone. And that API, is that in libjitsi meet as well, or is that through the data channel?
No, it's also in libjitsi meet. Actually, if you look at the RTC, well, modules RTC.js, they are actually one close to the other.
Both of them are on RTC.js?
Yeah, select endpoints and you pass an array of endpoints. And the other one is set receive video constraint and the max frame height. They are side by side and they do have a JS doc. So you can check for that there. And if you grab around the code for in Jitsi meet, you should be able to see how we use them as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it.
You're most welcome. We're still in open mic. Any other questions, comments, or thoughts? I'm not sure what the difference between comments and thoughts is. Oh, sure. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, one more very quick question, sort of corollary to my last one, which is just as we're testing some of these changes, we're trying to leverage the unit or integration tests as much as we can. Just obviously simplifies any code changes. Is there there seems to be sort of disparity between different mocks and different kind of testing infrastructure and different modules, different repositories? Is there anything that is really good for testing out sort of the RTP / audio layer, sort of media streams, the stream connectors, that sort of part of the code base that we can leverage?
Brian, do you have anything there? Because you're currently looking at that.
No, I mean the new stuff does, but I'm not aware of anything for the old stuff.
And the new stuff that Brian is referring to is the rewrite of the RTP layer in the video bridge. We're going to stop using libjitsi in the video bridge and move to what we internally refer to at this point as libjvb. We're hoping to be able to do that in December. Sorry, what was that?
Wow. Oh, wow. That's a big change.
It is a pretty big change. So libjitsi will continue to service Jigasi because obviously it's necessary there, but we are not going to be using it in the bridge anymore.
I see. What's the reasoning for that change? And is that planned to be open source?
Of course, yes, it is planned to be open source, and so in fact, I don't know, Brian, if you've already opened up some of it, but the reason is that every time, basically libjitsi has diverged, or rather the use cases that we have for libjitsi and the bridge are different. So we are more often than not, we're finding ourselves in situations where we have to work around a lot of the architecture of libjitsi in order to add new functionality to the bridge, while we don't actually use, like, we're never decoding. Now that we know our use case is better, we know that the whole mixing thing in the bridge is not really a good idea altogether, and that for all the use cases where this is necessary, there are better approaches with individual components like Jitsi or Jibri. So we never need to handle filter graphs in there and mixers and all that. We, on the other hand, we do need to simplify the code enormously as we're concentrating more and more on things like you know, just new features like the new RTP FEC or support for AV1 or SVC for the scalable SVC. All of these things would just require more and more complexity to be added. So we'd rather split out the complexity in libjitsi that we don't require in the bridge.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So is any of that open already, or that's coming down the pipe?
It's all open. It's just currently on my GitHub. It's not on the Jitsi one right now.
Oh. Okay. Is that, can we find that, or?
Yeah, if you want to poke around, it's my GitHub username is bbaldino, and the repo is called NLJ right now.
Actually, Brian, can you, when you get a chance, can you just create like fork that into Jitsi so that it's easier to find?
Yeah. That was on the list. Just haven't done it yet.
Please don't fork it, Trent. Like, give it away. Otherwise, code search doesn't work, which sucks.
Okay, yeah, we won't fork it. I just, it's more like
no. I don't mean you. I meant Brian.
Oh, sorry.
If you don't move it into Jitsi, then GitHub does this stupid limitation where you cannot search for actual code inside the forked repo. I don't know why.
That's
pretty
okay.
annoying.
Yeah. I figured we might not want that anyways, just for kind of cleanliness. So I just want to find it. There's an easy way to move it all over with all the history and everything.
Yeah, you can transfer it. That's the quickest.
And I was kind of assuming we'd probably rename it too, so that NLJ is not going to be its final name. But yeah, anyway, so there's some stuff to go around. But if you want to start peeking at it, that's where you can find it.
That's great. Yeah, thanks for the heads up on that. We'll take a look. But other than that, in terms of the libjitsi stuff, nobody's aware of any just tests around the RTP or translation stuff.
No, not really. No.
Okay, just curious.
Sorry.
Oh, no worries. Thank you.
Maybe the PSNR tests that we do, that's only for video, and I know that a lot of your use cases are on audio, so I don't know if that's going to work there.
But what are you referring to? Which part?
That just does a full call, like. Emil, is that? I assumed you were looking for something like being able to feed a PCAP through or something.
Not quite that low level. No, I just mean like just to be able.
Make sure that you haven't introduced any regressions in the RTP stack.
Yeah, or just to more easily test, sort of, yeah, but not quite that low, but we want to be able to mock out or not have to spin up the entire stack. But since we're testing around like the recorder RTP impl and getting this basic audio data, we want to just be able to sort of like mock out some of those layers so that it's simpler. We can just have a test.
So that we don't have that. What I was referring to is it does spin up an entire call and it just captures the images and compares for noise introduced in the images. So that's and that works on a very, very high level. So it's not a mock layer. It still would catch some regressions in RTP, but yes, much higher than what you're looking for.
Okay, where is that? Maybe take a look.
I don't know.
Referring to.
Brian, is that part of?
It's in Torture, I guess. It's called PSNR test. It's run as part of the Torture test.
Got
The
it.
same test.
Okay. Yeah, I was just looking at that. Great. I'll take a look.
Other questions or comments?
Hi there, team.
Hey there.
I'm Exxon from Solaborate. I'm going to make some kind of beginner questions, so please forgive me about that.
Nothing
I
to
just
forgive about.
started, yeah, I just started an implementation of Jitsi video bridge with Colibri protocol. And what I found difficult is there are some, how to say, there is a need for more documentation, for example, starting on allocation on channels. What are those data models that I need to send? What are must? What are those default values that I need to send to the video bridge? And also, the second is about the translator from SDP to Colibri protocol. Is there anywhere where I can find this kind of documentation, or I just need to do some kind of reverse engineering on GCOF or some?
Who would like to take that? Zoli, do you remember when you guys were using the bridge through REST? How were you informing yourselves?
I had done a REST example write-up that I'm pretty sure is still in the README from back in i5 days. Have you checked that?
I know that REST is still being used with not one of the latest Jitsis, but with some version like 800 something. I know it's old, but that's what that company you were referring to is using.
No, I was asking what documentation you were using to inform yourselves. But Brian just mentioned something in the README, the example in the README. We had talked about that, and are you? I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Exxon, yeah.
Exxon, yes, I'm sorry, Exxon. So
don't worry.
Have you checked out that?
Yeah,
the README, everything.
Yeah, so of course I've checked that, and kind of I started from there, and I made how to say a POC of working with that. But for example, there are some kind of unknown things. For example, just let's say this one, direction, send and receive. What are the, how to say, the allowed values that I need to send there? So kind of those questions, or I always need to send and receive on that property. There are those kind of, how to say, misdocumentation, because when you put a payload there, I need to know what kind of information I need to send and to get in order to complete the whole process.
I have a suggestion here, but does anyone else want to provide an answer to this, or? So the value specifically, and please anyone interrupt me if you have something better to suggest, but the values for these are the same as in the Jingo XEPs on XMPP. That's where they originally came from. So that's the values that we're still using. So for this, for the other thing that I was going to suggest, and I suggested privately when we were chatting, was if you just do your own. So obviously looking at, I don't know if looking at GCOFO is going to be that helpful, because GCOFO uses Colibri through XMPP. So I don't know if that would be particularly easy for you to deal with. But and it's code, so you have to kind of run it through your head. Maybe an easier way would be to set up your own Jitsi Meet instance. And I believe JVB, everyone correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we print out the Colibri messages in the logs, don't we?
Yeah.
You can also easily do that in GCOFO. Just enable Smack debug and you will see, I think, the messages coming out and in.
Right. So that's yeah. Enable Smack debug in Jigofo. Or what's the debug property code in the bridge, George? Or is it just by default?
I think it's by default. Yeah, it's
I don't think it's by default anymore. Sorry to interrupt, George, because
No,
we
no, go
changed
ahead.
it. We changed the log levels to debug, I think. Let me see exactly what it is. I'll paste it in the chat.
But here's the promise that here's what I can offer, because I know this is not the most convenient approach. As Boris is sending you these in the chat, what we'd suggest is if you play with that and build hypotheses about what you think is going on, prepare an MD file that explains all of these options as you're finding them, and send that on the community forum, and we're going to help you validate that it's correct so that we can then use that as documentation for other people. So as long as you're writing that up in documentation that we can reuse afterwards, we're more than happy to help validate your hypothesis about things. Does that make sense?
Okay, Mel. Okay, yeah. Yep, sure. Of course, I will need help, and we'll post on your forum. And by the way, why are you not using GitHub for those? Because code is there. Also, I can check.
We are using GitHub for those.
Yes, but for example, you say that I need to post to the Jitsi forum. Can I post just in the GitHub so I can follow also?
Because there's no forum on GitHub.
Yeah, but others are using for issues too. So okay, yeah.
We're trying to remove people away from that because we have a community site that is a kind of a more audience that are not GitHub specific.
Yeah, I mean GitHub's issues are meant for issues that have a lifetime and that are being triaged on a periodic basis, and we try to keep those to actual things that we're working on. And what you're describing is way more of a discussion than it is a specific issue. So.
Okay.
But just go to community.jitsi.org. It's it should even work better. So.
Okay, thanks.
And to have those logs show up, you need to add this property that I just pasted in the chat to the logging properties file.
Okay, Bruce, thanks.
Other questions or comments? All right. Well, then, thank you everyone for joining this first go at Jitsi at 8x8, and looking forward to seeing you all back here in 2 weeks. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.